Welcome back to my channel MS Old Coins, and thanks for stopping by. Today we're taking a closer look at a coin that many people would never think twice about, the 1973 DUSA Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, it may look dirty, scratched, faded, or simply worn out after decades of everyday use. Let's get started. The 1973 D Kennedy half dollar was struck at the Denver Mint during a time when half dollars were still being produced for circulation, although they were no longer seen in everyday transactions as often as they had been in earlier decades. The coin honors President John F. Kennedy, whose portrait appears on the front, while the reverse features the classic presidential seal with the eagle holding arrows and an olive branch. Even though millions of these coins were made, collectors continue searching for exceptional examples because condition, eye appeal, strike quality, and unusual minting characteristics can make one coin stand out from countless others. This is one reason why the 1973 D Kennedy half dollar continues to have real value in today's collector market. If you have a 1973 D half dollar, take a careful look at it under good lighting. Check the date on the front and make sure it reads 1973. Then look just below President Kennedy's neck for the small D mint mark, confirming that it was struck in Denver. Examine the portrait, the lettering, the rim, and the eagle on the reverse. Notice whether the design details remain sharp or if they have become worn from circulation. Also pay attention to any unusual features such as strong strikes, attractive original surfaces, or possible mint errors that could make the coin more desirable. Even if your coin looks old and heavily circulated, don't assume it has no value because many collectors appreciate coins with interesting history and original surfaces. One of the biggest mistakes people make is judging a coin only by how clean or shiny it looks. A coin that appears dark, toned, scratched, or worn can still have real value. In fact, many experienced collectors prefer coins that have developed natural aging over decades, because those surfaces tell the story of the coin's journey through history. An old coin does not have to look perfect to be collectible. Sometimes a coin that most people would overlook ends up becoming the one that surprises everyone. That is exactly why taking the time to inspect every detail is so important before making any decisions about keeping or selling it. When it comes to value, the condition of the coin makes a tremendous difference. A circulated example might still attract collector interest, while a much nicer specimen with stronger details can command significantly higher prices. Some well-preserved examples have reached around $850, while others in outstanding condition have sold for approximately $1,300. Exceptional coins with remarkable preservation or especially attractive eye appeal have achieved prices near $2,100, and even stronger examples have reached about $3,400. The finest certified pieces can sometimes bring $4,700 or even more when collector demand is especially strong. These values remind us that this coin has real value, especially when it survives in impressive condition. Another reason collectors continue searching for the 1973 D Kennedy half dollar is the possibility of finding unusual varieties or mint-made characteristics that separate one coin from another. Although not every coin will have something special, careful inspection is always worthwhile. Looking closely at the lettering, the date, the mint mark, and the overall strike can reveal details that casual owners never notice. Many exciting discoveries have started with someone simply deciding to examine an old coin more carefully instead of ignoring it. That simple habit has helped countless collectors build impressive collections over the years. One very important thing to remember is never clean your coin. It may seem like polishing or washing it will improve its appearance, but cleaning almost always removes the original surface that collectors want to see. Even gentle cleaning can leave tiny scratches that permanently reduce collectible appeal and market value. If you believe your 1973 D Kennedy half dollar might be worth something, leave it exactly as you found it and handle it only by the edges whenever possible. Keeping the coin in its original condition gives it the best chance of maintaining its real value for future collectors. Thanks so much for watching and spending a few minutes exploring the fascinating story of the 1973 D. Kennedy half dollar. Hopefully, this video encourages you to check your own coins a little more carefully, because something that looks worn, dirty, and ordinary could actually deserve a second look. You never know when an overlooked half dollar might turn out to be an interesting collectible with real value. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with other coin enthusiasts. Until next time, happy coin hunting and thanks for watching. Next coin, take a close look at this coin. What you're probably seeing is a dull, grayish disc with a faded portrait, maybe some scuff marks across the cheek, a rim that's taken a few hits over the years, and lettering that no longer pops the way it once did. This is a 1985 P. Kennedy half dollar, and to the untrained eye, it looks like pocket change that has seen better days, worn, dinged, and frankly unremarkable. The copper-nickel clad composition, which gives it that muted, slightly washed-out appearance, doesn't help either. It lacks the luster of silver, so it just sits there looking tired and forgotten. And that is precisely where the misjudgment begins. Most people look at a coin in this condition and immediately assume it's worth exactly 50 cents, maybe $1 if they're feeling optimistic. They see the wear, the dullness, the scratches, and they write it off as common junk, something that belongs in a cash-registered drawer or a jar of spare change, not in a collector's cabinet. But here is the analytical reality. Condition is relative, and the market does not simply dismiss a coin because it has been handled. What most people fail to understand is that value in numismatics is not always about perfection. It is about scarcity within a given condition tier, about how many examples survive in any grade, and about what collectors are willing to pay for a coin that represents a specific moment in American history. The 1985 P. Kennedy half dollar was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and with a mintage of 18,706,962 pieces, it is by no means a rare coin in the absolute sense. 18 million is a large number, and that is precisely why so many people dismiss it without a second thought. However, what the casual observer does not realize is that survival estimates tell a very different story. Of those nearly 19 million coins minted, the vast majority were released into circulation, where they were spent, lost, worn down, and damaged over decades of use. Coins that survived in high grades are remarkably scarce, and that scarcity is what drives the value upward in ways that surprise most people. To understand what you are actually holding, you need to look past the wear and focus on the visible features that identify this coin. On the obverse, you will see the portrait of President John F. Kennedy, surrounded by the word liberty along the periphery, with "In God We Trust" positioned to the left and right of the portrait and the date 1985 at the bottom. The P Mint mark, indicating Philadelphia, appears just under the right side of Kennedy's neck. On the reverse, you will find the heraldic eagle holding arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other, encircled by a full ring of stars, with United States of America and half dollar around the edge. The coin weighs 11.34 grams, measures 30.6 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge. These are the markers that confirm what you have. Now, here is where the narrative shifts from overlooked to potentially valuable. While a heavily circulated 1985 P. Kennedy half dollar might trade for somewhere between 60 cents and $1, the moment you move into uncirculated territory, the numbers change dramatically. A coin grading MS-65 can command prices in the range of several $100s, but the real action begins at MS-66 and above. Because this coin is considered a conditional rarity in higher grades, collectors actively seek out examples that have survived with minimal handling. An MS-66 example might bring $920 or more, while an MS-67 specimen can easily reach $1,650, and prices continue to climb from there. For the truly exceptional pieces, the values become even more striking. An MS-67 Plus or MS-68 example, which represents the absolute pinnacle of preservation for this issue, can sell for $2,750, $3,850, or even up to $4,900 or more depending on the market, the eye appeal of the coin, and the bidding activity at auction. These are not hypothetical numbers. These are real prices that collectors have paid and continue to pay for high-quality examples of this apparently common coin. The difference between a 50-cent coin and a $4,000 coin is simply a matter of condition, and that is why every single 1985 P. Kennedy half-dollar deserves a second look, regardless of how worn it appears at first glance. Before you do anything else, let me give you one piece of advice that could save you a significant amount of money. Do not clean this coin. Do not polish it. Do not scrub it. Do not dip it in any solution, and do not even wipe it with a cloth. Cleaning a coin removes the natural surface patina and leaves microscopic scratches that permanently damage the surface, and professional grading services will immediately detect this and refuse to assign a grade. A cleaned coin is essentially a ruined coin in the eyes of collectors, and its value plummets to a fraction of what it could have been. If you think you have something special, leave it exactly as it is and have it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. So the next time you come across a worn, dull, damaged 1985 P. Kennedy half-dollar, remember this. What looks like pocket change to most people might actually be a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collector. The wear tells a story, but the condition determines the price. Coin number 3, the dust clung to my fingers as I pulled the old mason jar from the back of the closet. A forgotten relic from my grandmother's estate that had been sitting in the dark for decades. Inside, amongst rusty buttons and tangled costume jewelry, sat a coin so unremarkable that I nearly tossed it back. A 1994 P. Kennedy half-dollar, dull as dishwater, its surface streaked with an ugly, blotchy discoloration that made it look more like a discarded token than a piece of American history. The copper-nickel clad had taken on a tired, muted gray, and the once proud portrait of President Kennedy seemed almost apologetic beneath a film of grime and age. It was the kind of coin you spend without a second thought, the kind that gets lost in couch cushions or dropped into parking meters, and honestly, that's exactly what I almost did. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the faint glint of detail still clinging to Kennedy's hair, or the way the Philadelphia P. mint mark sat quietly beneath his neck, waiting to tell a story nobody bothered to hear. You see, the 1994 P. half-dollar was born into a world that had already forgotten the half-dollar existed. By the early 1980s, this denomination had become virtually non-existent in day-to-day transactions, even though it remained on the lineup of business strike circulating coinage until 2002. The mint struck over 23.7 million of these coins in Philadelphia that year, a massive number that made them about as common as parking tickets. And because they're made of 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center, not silver, not gold, most people assume they're worth exactly what's stamped on the front, 50 cents. The obverse, designed by Gilroy Roberts, shows Kennedy's portrait surrounded by the word Liberty, with "In God W.E. Trust" flanking the sides and the date at the bottom. The reverse, crafted by Frank Gasparo, features the heraldic eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by a full circle of stars. It's a beautiful design, really, but one that's been so mass-produced that we've stopped seeing it. And that, right there, is the trap, because appearance, as I was about to discover, can be the most deceptive thing in the world. What I didn't know, as I held that ugly, discolored coin in my palm, was that the 1994 P. half-dollar holds a secret that numismatists have been chasing for years. While most circulations strike Kennedy halves from the 1980s and 1990s had mintages in the 15 to 25 million range, making them fairly common, The real magic happens when you start talking about condition. Any business strike piece grading better than MS66 or MS67 is largely regarded as a conditional rarity. That means a coin that looks pristine, one that survived circulation without getting scratched, dinged, or worn down, can suddenly transform from pocket change into real money. And here's the kicker. In MS68 condition, these coins are incredibly tough to locate, and you can expect to pay hundreds if not thousands of dollars for PCGS MS68 graded examples or higher. The difference between a 50-cent coin and a four-figure treasure is measured in microscopic details. The sharpness of Kennedy's hair, the luster of the fields, the absence of bag marks. It's the kind of thing you'd never notice unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. So how do you tell if your ugly duckling is actually a swan? The first thing to look for is the mint mark, that tiny P right under the right side of Kennedy's neck, which tells you this coin was struck in Philadelphia. Then you flip it over and examine the reverse with a magnifying glass, because this is where the real money hides. One of the most valuable and actively searched error types in the Kennedy series involves the initials of the reverse designer, Frank Gasparro. His FG, typically located near the eagle's left leg and the central tail feathers. The no FG variety occurs when mint employees, in an effort to prolong the life of the die by removing marks or imperfections, became overzealous in their polishing and inadvertently wiped those tiny initials completely off the surface. A 1982 P No FG in MS67 has sold for between $2,500 and $2,820, and while the 1994 P hasn't hit those exact heights yet, the principle is the same. Errors and varieties can turn common coins into collector gold. You're also looking for doubled dies, off-center strikes, strike-through errors, or any other minting anomaly that sets your coin apart from the 23 million others just like it. Now let's talk about what this coin can actually be worth, because the numbers will make your head spin. In circulated condition, that 1994 P half-dollar in your hand is worth between 55 and 65 cents, barely more than its face value. But the moment you step into uncirculated territory, the game changes entirely. An MS65 example might bring a modest premium, but push that grade to MS66, and you're looking at prices that start to climb. At MS67, the value jumps significantly, with some examples trading in the range of $780 to $1,250 depending on eye appeal and market timing. And if you're lucky enough to find one in MS68, that's where things get really interesting. The NGC price guide notes that pristine, uncirculated 1994 P half-dollars have sold for as much as $2,450 on the open market. But the ceiling is even higher. PCGS auction records show examples reaching $2,050, $3,300, and in exceptional cases, upwards of $4,600+ for coins with perfect surfaces and stunning luster. That's a return of over 9,000% on a 50-cent investment. Not bad for a coin that looks like it belongs in a junk drawer. But here, where most people make a catastrophic mistake, they try to clean it. I can't stress this enough. Do not, under any circumstances, scrub that coin, dip it in anything, or even wipe it with a cloth. Cleaning a coin strips away its natural surface, destroys the luster that collectors prize, and can cut its value by 90% or more. The discoloration you see. That's called tunning, and it's actually something many collectors find desirable. It tells the story of where that coin has been, the years it spent in that jar, the hands it passed through. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC can authenticate and grade your coin in its natural state, encapsulating it in a protective slab that preserves its value. And if you do send it in, pay attention to the population reports. PCGS has graded 139 examples in MS67 and only a handful higher, meaning your coin could be one of the finest known examples of its kind. The rarer the grade, The rarer the coin, and the rarer the coin, the higher the price. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the money. It's the reminder that value isn't always visible to the naked eye. We live in a world that judges things by their surface, that dismisses the worn, the tarnished, the overlooked. But every coin has a history, and every history has a secret. That 1994 p-half dollar you almost threw away. It carries the legacy of a fallen president, the artistry of two master engravers, and the possibility of a life-changing find. It survived 30 years in the dark, waiting for someone to see past its flaws and recognize its potential. And isn't that true of so many things we take for granted? The ugly duckling, the diamond in the rough, the hidden treasure in plain sight. They're all around us, if only we know how to look. So the next time you find yourself sifting through old change, inherited collections, or forgotten jars, take a second look. Flip that coin over, grab a magnifying glass and check for the details that matter. Check the mint mark, check the condition, check for errors, and whatever you do, don't clean it. Because that dull, discolored, easy-to-dismiss piece of metal in your hand might just be worth $780, or $1,250, or $2,050, or $3,300, or even $4,600 or more, depending on what the graders find. The difference between pocket change and a payday is nothing more than knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look beyond the surface. And sometimes, the most valuable treasures are the ones that have been hiding in plain sight all along, waiting for someone like you to finally see them for what they truly are.